Welcome back, wonderful people. This is lesson numero uno, which is one. Uno is Spanish for one, in case your uneducated brain didn't know that. I'm kidding. All have beautiful brains. Lesson one, identity and the social self. So again, what we should be making sure we're doing at each of every lesson is highlighting the lesson that we're doing. Remembering that this part here is the syllabus dot point. Okay, so I put that here. So if we were to look here, we're starting there. We're going to do that one next lesson. I like to start off with identity. I think it's a bit better. So just so you know that that's where we're getting the content from. Okay, so highlighting this and then dating it. That's really important. Okay, that helps us be accountable for NESA. It also lets you know where you're up to exactly. If you're ever away for some reason, you'll know what lessons you need to catch up on. So highlight lesson one, and here we go. So here it is. We've got our heading in our syllabus dot point here again. We're looking at the development identity and the social self here. What I would really recommend you guys doing is quickly going back to your concept card, if you can, and just revisiting that concept of identity. Okay, you should be able to find it in the back of your syllabus here. Okay, so identity, as it's written here, is your sense of self. So it's the idea that, or the thoughts that you prescribe yourself with and how you engage and react in the world. Now, with identity, as it says here, it can be viewed from a personal, social, and cultural level. So if we were to break this up, this idea of and we touched on this a little bit in the first topic when we looked at that idea of the social self versus the personal self. The social self being the side of you that you portray to your friends and peers and when you're out in public. And then you have that personal self where only really close, intimate friends or partners and family may know. So you might be very different in a social group, and your social identity might be very different to your personal identity. I know for me, this is definitely true. So my personal identity and what I'm like at home with my wife and dog and close friends is very different to my social identity when I'm out and engaging in the community, when I'm at work, at school, with you guys. And there's also this concept of cultural identity as well. And so when we look at that definition of culture, we understand that culture is, and it's here somewhere. Oh, it's not here. But anyway, culture is our values and beliefs. And so that idea that culturally we also have a different identity. So for many people that could be engaging in a religion. For other people that might be identifying with a sport. So say for me, I've got this, sorry, that's probably a bit too close for comfort, but you'll deal. For me, I culturally identify as an Arsenal fan, right? So I've got this calendar here sitting above my computer, and for me, this is a part of my cultural identity. I identify as an Arsenal supporter. Now, this is a bit of an insider fun thing. So my mate's got me this calendar, right? And if you follow football, you know that Arsenal's obviously the greatest team in England and that Tottenham is the absolute worst team in England. So they got me this for Christmas. I thought, oh, what a lovely gift. All right, look what they did. They cut out all the Tottenham players and stuck their heads on. How rude is that? And cheeky. I mean, some of them don't even make any sense, right? Anyway, so I digress. So that's the three different types of identity. You got your personal, social, and cultural identity. Now here where we're looking at it, the concept of identity is formed over a period of time and is the result of interactions at the micro, meso, and macro levels of society. So this idea that your identity, again, can be viewed from personal, social, and cultural levels, but it's also shaped through interactions. Now, interactions at the micro level could be things like family, your very close peers, and yourself. So that's where those main interactions will form your identity. So for example, Your cultural identity can be shaped at an interaction at a micro level by your parents' beliefs and values and them imparting onto you, for example. At a meso level, we can look at this idea of your social identity can be shaped by school. So we've got that meso and school interaction happening there. And then at a macro level, we can look at interactions with things like social media or movies and the culture, I guess, that a lot of those media outlets portray can affect our personal identity as well and our core values and beliefs. You might watch a document. I know a lot of people have watched documentaries on Netflix about veganism, and so that's affected their personal identity as after watching a documentary, like they've turned vegan, as an example, right? And then lastly here we've got an identity has dimensions or layers that create a sense of inclusion in a group or culture. So the idea of inclusion, well, when you experience social inclusion, is that you are one on a level playing field with everyone else, and that idea that you have a sense of belonging to a group. So say, for example, if I go back to that cultural example of Arsenal and sport, the idea that I can have a sense of inclusion amongst Arsenal fan groups and supporters. Even if any of you guys play sports or in a sporting club, you have that sense of inclusion through your group identity and social identity at a meso level with the sport. Other things that can contribute to one's identity are things like gender, sexuality, family, class, ethnicity, beliefs, social status, group membership, and national pride. So for example, gender, whether you identify as male or female or other, can significantly affect your social and personal and cultural identity. So for example, a lot of males and children growing up are given things like trucks, so their cultural identity is shaped by the fact that they are going to be more likely to maybe pick careers that correspond with those things. If we look at sexuality, the idea that sexuality can shape your identity because you're, whether you're homosexual or heterosexual, literally when you're filling out forms and things like that, a lot of the time that's a question that's asked when you're at the doctors and things like that. So it's a very identifying factor. And then you could probably pick heaps of others. So say for ethnicity, you're identifying from a certain country or region. Beliefs, that could be a certain religion. With social status, for example, if you're a doctor, right, you've got a degree that gives you what they call a doctorate level, so you're recognised as a doctor by law. So that social status will then increase because of your identity within your own profession. And yeah, so that's pretty much what this lesson is looking at. So I'll get you to fill in this word bank now after listening to that brief little mini lecture on identity and how it's constructed. Again, there are 3 types of identity: personal, cultural, and social. So get stuck into that. Once you've done that, I'll get you to pause the video now, fill that out, and then come back. Welcome back. So now what I want you guys to do is I've created this little table here called Who Am I, right? And you've got 4 little sections. You've got interests, personality, knowledge, skills, abilities, and values and beliefs. What I want you to do is, 1, list at least 5 points in this box for each of these things about yourself. And that's the first thing I want you to do. So for example, my personality, what I would write if I was doing this, 1, it can be brief, but we can write 5 things. 1 would be hilarious. 2 would be funny. No, I'm kidding. So you see what I did there. 2 might be outgoing. 3 might be kind. Whatever it is, I want you to list 5 personality traits that you think you have. Then I want you to list 5 things that you're interested in. So for me, it might be sport, education, food, reading, hanging out with friends. Okay, that might be my 5. Your knowledge, skills, and abilities. So what this is are things that I guess you possess that are really good. So let's say you have, so say for knowledge for me, I have a lot of knowledge on education and learning and how kids learn. So that might be a special asset of knowledge that I put there. Skills, teaching is one of my skills. A skill for you might be something like sport. whatever it is, I want you to list 5. Abilities: do you play an instrument? Are you really good at swimming? Do you have even it doesn't even have to be, I guess, sporting or physically related. Like, do you have a really good ability to talk to people, generate really good, healthy, robust conversation? Those sorts of things I want you to put at least 5 in there. And then your values and beliefs. So things here like you might believe, you could take this literally. You might be like, I believe in the right and freedom of speech. I believe in the right that you can marry whoever you want. It can be other things as well, like your beliefs. So whether you belong to a particular religion, whether you don't belong to a particular religion, that's how you identify with your beliefs. If you have any strong feelings about any contemporary issues or whatever it is, say you might be a vegan or you might identify as something else. So I guess once you've completed at least 5 of those things, the idea is that someone can look at that and get a rough or general gist or idea of who you are and what you're about. What I then want you to do, this is where it gets fun, is number 2. I want you to give this to someone you know well. So your BFF, that stands for best friend forever. In case you didn't know, I don't know if that's part of your generation or not, but it's a bit of slang for you. Or your parent, and I want you to get them to highlight any areas that they think are false. Okay, so the idea here is that we're going to note which qualities you think belong to your inner self versus your social self. So this idea, your personality, for example, you might have written that you yourself are absolutely hilarious, but your parent or BFF might think that that's complete BS, and they could highlight that. So I guess it's interesting just to see the different dynamics of how you view yourself and your identity versus how others do. So give that a go. That could be a fun little activity. So pause that, do that now, and then come back for the last segment. All right, here we are. So our last thing here is our summary task. Now you can do it in the booklet. You don't have to do this in your big boy book. If you think you're going to run out of lines or room or space, just write there that you're going to do it in your big boy book, and then you can put it there. If not, I'm happy for you to do it here, but I'm going to check both anyway. So the question is, why do you think we portray a social self to the macro and meso world and keep our personal identity or inner self limited to the micro world? So if we were to break this question down, remember we've got 3 different types of identity: personal, social, and cultural. So here we're looking at the personal and social aspect. So I want you to think, why is it that, I guess if we were to paraphrase this question, why is it that we're very different around our family and close friends than to what we are when we're out in public about, say, at school or in the workplace? Why do we feel the need to portray a social self to the macro meso world, even on your Instagram profiles, okay? Is that highlight reel actually really reflective of who you are? It may be, it may not be. So I guess I want you to think, I guess in the psychological sense, why do you think we feel the need to do that? Is it because we want to feel like we conform to certain social standards? Is it because we save our personal identity for the true friends that matter? Whatever it is, I want to get your opinion on that. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines there. Make sure you fill them all. Remember, this is a HSC skill. The amount of lines there is indicative of the length of response that is required. So get that done, and then beauty. Lesson 1 is complete. See you in the next one.